So this is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by Lou DiBella for DiBella's Digest. Lou, how's your week been?
Another week, Dan. I'm not going to complain. Still breathing. Everybody's okay. I mean, productive in some ways, like every week, and disappointing in others. But so is boxing on a regular basis. So everything's cool. But I want to tell you something. I want to do a little bit of like slapping myself on the shoulder here, and actually you too, because I think we nailed our post facto. If you look at our recent DiBella's Digest, we're on a roll of getting these fights predicted right. So maybe we need to consider at some point putting together a little panel and doing a predictions show that precedes the fights. So, but then again, if we start predicting before the fights, we'll probably get them wrong, and people will be angry at us.
People will be losing money as a result. Yeah.
But certainly now I'm on a roll in picking fights.
Well, when we come to the end of this week's, we'll ask you some more. This won't go out until after the fights, but then that's the acid test. We'll see if you were right. But what I wanted to talk to you about this week, and we've talked about this previously, but it was reported earlier in the week by Mike Coppinger that Eddie Hearn has decided to leave Sky Sports in the UK.
I don't think Eddie decided to leave Sky. I think Eddie made a big deal years ago with DAZN. I think that Eddie, that Matchroom and the Hearns got a tremendous benefit from that deal economically and otherwise, and that it was inevitable probably that the product was going to move to DAZN, particularly right now where DAZN's a global app and their emphasis clearly is outside of the United States and more around the world in a more total sense. Heavy emphasis on Europe. Great Britain is one of those countries, and where DAZN's able to acquire rights that are meaningful. And for boxing fans in the UK, I believe they're going to subscribe to DAZN because Eddie has the best product in the UK. So I think it was comprehensible, makes sense from DAZN's business model. I think everyone put it this way, it was like everybody knew that news was coming. So, Coppinger may have scooped it, but it wasn't big news to anybody, I don't think.
How would you kind of
I'm really interested to see, and I don't know what the scuttlebutt is. I haven't seen Adam Smith's comments. I got to give him a call soon, actually, just to catch up. But I don't know what the commitment is of Sky to stay in boxing. But my understanding is that Sky has some kind of a deal still with Anthony Joshua, I think, or correct? Is that right?
I mean, according to Coppinger, the deal with DAZN excludes Anthony Joshua and Dillian Whyte, who are the established pay-per-view headliners.
Okay, well, and if it excludes them, I would still think that Sky will maintain a presence in boxing, and that they'll be looking to fill the void. Look, but Matchroom and Eddie aren't the only games in town. Now, Eddie's got a dominant stable in the UK, but they're not the only games in town. And there are other people, many, many other fighters that aren't locked in with Eddie that could create great programming if they open up the network to everybody's fighters and make the best fights. Sky could maintain being a powerhouse, and they do have Joshua and Dillian Whyte already, and I think the best case now for everybody, once the decision was made with DAZN and Eddie, I think the best case scenario is that Sky stays in boxing in a meaningful way.
How much of a gamble is the move by Eddie Hearn and Matchroom? Because it's like someone leaving HBO or Showtime for DAZN.
I mean, it depends what your agenda is. If your agenda is dominance over the rest of your life, I don't know. If it's making as much money as possible, which I tend to think is Eddie's agenda, then it's the right move right now. But you're giving up an awful lot of eyeballs. Sky can make stars in a much easier way than DAZN can, and that's not DAZN's fault. That's any streaming service. You have a limited number of eyeballs compared to what you have on Sky. So I think from an exposure standpoint, there's a risk, and I also think that Sky's exposure can build new stars. So if new people coming out of the Olympics, new emerging stars in British, Scottish, Irish, UK boxing, in that Sky universe, Sky even extends into Australia, right? I mean, I believe there's Sky Australia. Like Sky can do some really interesting things if they open up their service. I think there's a lot for Adam Smith to talk to a lot of people about, and I'm still my best case scenario is that Sky opens up to promoters around the world, particularly obviously Sky's going to have an emphasis on on areas where they have distribution, and obviously the UK is huge among those. But my hope is that Sky stays as a major player. Eddie's a major player with DAZN. You know, Frank's got his thing. Competition is good, my friend. You know, it's better for boxing fans. They have to understand that. So, you know, Eddie had 2 exclusive deals, right? Now he has 1 huge one. But I think that might be the benefit of boxing. I think that might be a good thing.
Is it a good thing for the boxers themselves? I mean, obviously they're going to get paid a lot more, which is great, but the exposure is kind of a mitigating factor. They'll not have as much.
Well, it's easier to build stars with exposure, with more exposure. It's harder to build stars on streaming, you know, and that's just sort of a fact, right? You know, you can't get around that. It's more difficult. It's possible, but also a lot of Eddie's fighters had that combination. Some of them jumped back and forth a little bit. There are people that fought on Sky, also fought on DAZN. You're not going to see as much, you know, you're not going to see that any longer. So, but there are plenty of fighters that are, you know, look, Eddie's got a tremendous stable, but they're particularly in the UK, but there's plenty of fighters that are not with Eddie. And there are some really good fights to be made if they put in quality control and opened up Sky to the best fights and the best fighters. They got a pretty good start with those couple of heavyweights, but there's certainly, you know, if they're not going to lock themselves into one entity, you know, I think they could go to the you know, how they, I think there's an opportunity for them to stay a major player and remain relevant in boxing.
Aside from the obvious financial advantage, what other reasons are there that Matchroom would have left the long-term partner in Sky to go with DAZN?
I mean, honestly, you have to assume that there was a windfall to Eddie when DAZN was pissing money away in the beginning, making mistakes because they hadn't come to certain conclusions about their business that needed to be worked out over time. They needed to come up with strategies that would work. I think they thought that they would have more traction in picking up US rights, but it wasn't their fault. The US rights weren't available. So, you know, they became a stronger entity in Japan, a stronger entity, you know, in markets around the world. And now with Eddie as their partner, they're going to go after the UK and all, you know, they're going to go after the UK and all Ireland, Scotland, and the rest of the UK, England. I mean, the dominance there. I think that's what they're going to seek in those markets. But I think Sky can have something to say about that. I think Frank could have something to say about that. And I think every other promoter in the world that has a big stable and a lot of talent can keep it a competitive marketplace. And I personally think competition makes for better fights, you know. And Eddie previously, like I said, Eddie previously had 2 exclusive sort of avenues. Now he has 1, but I don't think it was a new decision. I think that it was sort of a fait accompli. I think everybody was waiting until the Sky deal ended to see Eddie move on. I think everyone sort of in the industry knew that when the Sky deal ended, Eddie would move basically solely to DAZN.
And if we see more of a focus on the UK market for DAZN, as seems to be the case boxing-wise, what will happen to the DAZN shows in the US? Because there's been criticisms of those already. Will the quality kind of sink?
Look, people have to stop fucking being bullshit artists in boxing, right? Boxing's a niche sport. It's a big niche sport. It can be immense and command attention with a huge event, but we're a fucking niche sport. And a niche sport is not the locomotive for a streaming service. And in order for DAZN to have taken off in the United States, they needed to dominate American boxing, which they didn't. And they needed a breadth of American sports programming, which through no fault of theirs was simply not available to them. And as a result of that, I mean, look, I'm only speaking also from what I'm reading. And I've read a lot of the new brass at DAZN give interviews where they've said that there's a de-emphasis sort of the US market and a greater emphasis on the globalization of the app. And that's just smart business for them. You know, look, I think particularly in America, right? An American fighter is not going to become a superstar on DAZN alone, right? I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it's going to be hard to develop a young fighter into a superstar because I don't think there's enough penetration of DAZN in the US, right? But hey, UK, all of a sudden, you're only going to get, if you can only get, you're not going to get pay-per-views with the same repetition. You have to pay a much lower rate for a monthly service that's going to deliver you the majority of Eddie and Matchroom's fights. That's probably going to be attractive to, like, I'm not betting against the success of DAZN and Matchroom in the UK. I'm not, I'm also not betting on the disappearance of Sky.
Okay. Now, before we let you go, obviously, as we alluded to at the start of the show, we want to test out your prediction skills after the event, as it were, although we're speaking now on Friday. So we've got a day to go. And I'm going to ask you about the big US fight of the weekend rather than the ones over here. It's Emmanuel Navarrete defending his world title against Christopher Diaz. How do you see that one going?
That's I haven't seen the odds. Have you seen the odds?
I haven't. No, I would imagine Navarrete is a narrow favorite, but
I think I would probably pick Navarrete, but I think that it's a very live underdog in that fight. Where I was going to put my money, I'm not going to say right now because I'd have to look at where the numbers are. Like, I'm a believer in value. I think Diaz is a tough kid, and I think that's a good matchup. I think I probably would edge if you're giving me even money, I'm taking Navarrete, but I don't think the odds are even money. So I'd need to see what they were to make that determination.
That's fair enough. We'll check back next week and see if it was indeed at least a competitive matchup, as we think it will be.
Yeah, I think it should be a competitive fight.
Great stuff. Lou,
what's the British fight this weekend?
You've got Denzel Bentley against Felix Cash is the main event of Frank's show tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. That's British middleweight, British and Commonwealth middleweight titles.
Who are you picking in that fight?
I'm not picking anyone. I'm sitting on the fence. I know both guys really well, so publicly, I'm certainly sitting on the fence on that one.
That's actually also a pretty good domestic fight. It really is, actually. I mean, it should be a good fight. Okay, I'm going to edge Bentley.
Okay, all right. So we're edging Bentley and Navarrete. So let's see how that works out next week.
But I do think that both fights figure to be fights, And again, not having the odds in front of me, I'm not saying where I'd put my money.
That's fair enough.
In the future, if we start doing this before the fact, we'll actually look at the odds and have a little discussions about them. I don't gamble on any fight card that I have a fighter on the card. Like, I'm not a bit, and I don't bet on. I have enough at stake with my own fighters. I don't bet on fights involved, certainly on fights involving my own fighters. But I do sort of think that I'm one of the more knowledgeable people in boxing. So I do like the sports gamble at a very reasonable level. And I think people like us that are like addicted to the sport probably have a better track record than most in picking fights.
Well, let's get it done earlier going forward, and hopefully we can help some people into prosperity.
So how are things over there? Is you guys are pretty much opened up now, right?
Pretty much. I mean, there's still like certain restrictions, but it's nothing like it was. All the shops are back open, all the major outlets and stuff.
Can you go into a pub and have a pint?
No, you have to sit outside until next month. So they're open, but only for outside. Same with restaurants, outside dining.
I want to be able to have a cocktail at a bar, even if it's outdoors. And at the moment, that's not the case yet here. But actually, I'm looking forward to opening day, May 4th, in Richmond, Virginia, of the Richmond Flying Squirrels. We have a sellout already for opening day, even though we're only allowed, at the moment, we're allowed 30% occupancy, though it may increase before opening day to 50. I'm praying. But I'll be at opening day, and I'll be able to drink beer in a ballpark, with my mask on, but I'll be able to drink beer in a ballpark and I'm looking forward to that. I have opening day in Montgomery, Alabama on May 11th. I'll be probably, with a tiny bit of trepidation, be taking my first flights in May. I haven't flown since the pandemic started. But now things are picking up a little bit, and I've had both my vaccines, and I'm 2 weeks removed from them. So, I'm going to be back to civilization.
Go the Flying Squirrels.
The Flying Squirrels, my friend. Funville, USA.
I love
Anyway,
it.
good seeing you, my friend, and I'll talk next week.
Great. Cheers, Lou. Take care.